So, hi everyone, and welcome to another JSO kind of tutorial. In this episode, I'm gonna start a new NLP models package, which is related to something my students will do. One of my students is probably gonna work on that. And I essentially want to start it because starting a new package in the exact way that I want is not an easy task. So I'm gonna do it now. So the first thing that I always do when I'm starting a new package is I generate the package using Julia. And so I'm calling it MultObjNLPModels.jl for now at least. I don't remember if I need, so I don't need .jl. Then I close this and I go inside. First that I move this to .jl, and the other things that I'm gonna work on are gonna be here in my new editor. So I'm using a new editor instead of using the traditional Vim because it's a little bit more user friendly. So I'm gonna use NLP models, which is the main one. And for that, I'm gonna activate this package. So it's not started in Git yet, so git init. I'm gonna activate. And the first thing is I'm gonna add NLP models. So I think this is gonna be the only package that we're gonna need for multi-objective NLP models. So the idea behind multi-objective NLP models is I'm gonna extend the NLP models API to an NLP models where I have more than one objective. So this generalization why do I call it a generalization first? Because the default objective API, so when I call obj for this model, I want it to work, so I can pass it directly to another solver. And the main objective function is gonna be a linear combination of the other functions. So why am I looking to a multi-objective one? Because of multi-objective problems, yes, but also because of problems which are sum of many objectives, essentially. So I'm looking in special to logistic regression, for instance, and maybe some neural network. So my student's project is going to be something like implementing this model and then creating a stochastic gradient solver. Okay. So the first thing is that this is by the way is not brand new. I have made something similar with NLS models, although NLS models is inside NLP models. So inside NLP models, you're gonna find a nonlinear least squares models, which is a model for which the function, the objective function, is the norm of a vector valued function. So it's a generalization as well. So I'm gonna do this a little bit more structure. I'm gonna create the API separately, and I'm gonna see what I need later. I'm gonna keep the NLS models here because I'm sure we're gonna need it. And I'm gonna copy a bunch of stuff. So here first I need a new file, which is the API.jl. So I'm gonna create an abstract multi-objective model, which is an abstract NLP model. So this, by the way, could count as a kind of advanced creating your model manually tutorial, okay? Why advanced? Because these already assume some understanding of all the NLP models. So I need to implement some functions which are specific to NLS models. I'm gonna skip all that for now. So for instance, here in the NLS models, I have the residual and all functions related to the residual, which includes the Jacobian and the Hessian of several functions, several functions, and eventually I get to a part which has the objective, which is what I'm changing, defined through that residual function. So if I call objective on an NLS model, what it's gonna do is gonna compute the residual and then return the norm of that function squared divided by 2. If I compute the gradient, what it's gonna do is compute the residual and then compute the Jacobian transpose of the residual times that residual. So essentially, it's using the internal function. So here I'm gonna document this. Should I don't document these NLS models in a good way. So yeah. But I'm gonna document this, especially because it's a completely separate package. So abstract boot objective is an abstract type for problems with multiple objective. The default way of looking into these models are way of looking into these models is, because it's the default way, is by defining the objective f of x equals, by the way, I'm gonna use triple mf, not nef, mef, equals the sum of, I'm gonna use sigma I fi of x. An abstract An abstract MultObjective model is expected to have, so the sum way in the NLS model, and actually all NLP models need to have meta, and I'm gonna use the NLS model autodiff, AD NLS models. They are expected to have a meta and an NLS meta, and whatever else is needed. In addition to having a meta and an NLS meta, I could have, actually I don't need an NLS meta, but a specific meta structure. So I'm gonna need a meta, NLP model meta. I'm gonna have a mult meta. That's a terrible name. MLBJ meta. Or should I stay or should I go? Should I have an extension of NLP model meta? Instead of having an NLP model meta, I have an abstract NLP model meta and copy everything here. So that's the issue with a model NLP model meta. I'm gonna have to copy everything here. But so I had this discussion with myself when defining the NLS meta, and I decided to have a separate NLS meta. And the issue is that the NLS meta has almost nothing So I'm not sure how useful that was. I did have to create a separate show method. Which was not fun. So I'm gonna try a different approach. I'm gonna create a simple meta, which instead of being an NLP model meta is gonna be a MultObjNLP model meta. I don't need model here. I'm gonna call it MultObjNLP meta. So another thing that I have to include before including the API is MultObjMeta.jl. By the way, most of the method is gonna be created by my students, so this is just a taste of what to expect. MultObjMeta.jl. So MultObjMeta is gonna. I don't need that. I need this. Here. It's gonna need this. So MultObjNLPMeta. Is this correct? Yes. A composite type that represents the main features of the optimization problem. Obj equals the sum of sigma I f x. Okay. So do I use obj for something? Not really. This is gonna need a revamp before 1.0. Obj I. Obj eyes. So this doesn't have the same size as the others. So the small I is not fixed with letter, and I think it should be. Anyway, are each real valued objective functions. I'm gonna ignore that. And var, the number of variables. Oh, sorry. And count the number of general constraints. Why is this not formatted correctly? I don't know. Actually, none of them are following any guidelines. And I think I'm gonna add it right at the start. The number of objectives. So I'm probably gonna need something like this, number of objectives. I'm gonna store, let me think, am I gonna store these sigma I here, or I'm gonna store them outside? I think it kind of makes sense to store these weights here. Yeah, I'm gonna store them here. Weights. Thinking, should I use sigma? I'm gonna leave this. weights of each objective. Are the weights of the objectives. Okay, LVAR doesn't make sense. It's not different. I fix information for each of the objective function. So number of nonlinear, these are variables. Variables in objectives. I'm gonna leave this. This is mostly not used by any of our models, at least. Maybe one of the external models like Qtest or Ample. Don't know. Variables, constraints. And I have, for instance, I have the number of nonlinear objectives. This shouldn't even be, anyway, there is something like, there is the number of nonlinear objectives here. So, fine. And the order. I'm gonna define something like obj types, which should be a vector of symbols. Types of the objectives. This is almost looking like the SIF model. Weights, objective types, something else that I want to store here. I want to look into the number of non-zeros. Should I store? No, let's leave it. Let's use just the simple strategy. The number of non-zeros in each objectives, NNZ I. So I can look at them individually. So should be a vector of integers. So the number of, let's copy the NNZH here. The number of elements needed to store the non-zeros in the sparse hashing of the ith objective. Okay. I hope this is sufficient for now. So constructor nvar is mandatory. Then after uvar and obj. I think that this should be mandatory as well. The number of variables and the number of objectives. So this is MultObjNLPModels. So the number of objectives should be mandatory, otherwise it doesn't make sense. The number, the second thing is what? There you have it. The weights. The weights, if they are not passed, they should all be 1. The objective types, if they are not passed, they should be the more general ones, which is gonna be, I have to use fill. How do I say this? Fill gen 5. Yes. So it's gonna be gen. So which let me see if I have something similar to type. No. So which types there can be? 0, linear, quadratic, and general. Okay, those are the ones that matter. Just 0, 1 doesn't actually matter in this situation. I'm gonna leave it as linear, quadratic, or generic. Although I'm not gonna use this for some time. And the NNZHI is gonna be a bunch of these. Does it know this is an integer? Yes. So this is gonna be the full thing. Okay, is working. How is missing? I broke something. Div ends there, then that, then this is too much. Okay. Length check. I have to check the lengths of the weights. They have size and objective. The weights, the obj types, and NNZHI. I have to check that every element in the objective types is unique to much. So I'm gonna use unique if the types are not a subset. So if not, if the types of the objectives are not a subset of lim, quad, and gen, I'm gonna error with the objective types should be chosen from the set lim, quad, gen. Okay, fine, good enough. The weights doesn't really matter. The NNZH, so I have a test here for each NNZH. So NNZHI, they should each be larger than 0. So NNZHI is going to be minus 2350. Maximum of 0 NNZHI works. So this creates the nonlinear, the non-zeros of the hashing for each objective. So I import base show. Abstract NLP model becomes something different. This is not in the right place. So this is gonna be here inside the API. His line was I'm sorry, I do not export this function. Anyway, sparsed line, don't need. Lines of hist is general. And here's the main one. Lines of description of an NLP model meta, which now should be of a MultObjective NLP meta. So I create a vector with the values of the all variables. Should I create another column just for the objectives? No, I don't think I will. Not for now, I'm gonna leave it this way. I'm gonna print a line though, saying to do improve this printing. This function. And then I have show, which will be port base show, and print the problem name. Where do I call show header? Oh no, this is already inside the NLP model objectives. So I'm gonna print another line here inside problem name, that stuff, number of objectives, m.nlj. So there is some printing here, and that's it. This should be enough for now. Here I have a show header for an abstract MultObjective model, which is this printing the type of the model. Show for this model. By the way, this blue line here, it says that an imported function has been extended without using model defined type arguments. Yes, yes. This is, by the way, one of the reasons I've changed to VS Code, because of all the information, and also because of this thing here. It's cool. And congrats to everyone developing VS Code, or actually the VS Code extension, the plugin, whatever it's called, for Julia. Show header, show the meta, and show the counters. So that's it. I should extend the counters when needed. I'm probably gonna need a multi-objective counter as well. So I have this, all this meta function. I'm gonna include a counter separately. So what's the problem here? The included file could not be found. MultObjNLPModels.jl. Are you sure? Looks like it has changed its mind. So I'm gonna include a new file which will be MultObjCounters.jl. By the way, why am I'm calling that MultObjCounters? I'm already inside MultObjNLPModels.jl. Is that? I don't think I need to use such a long name for that, right? Let me know if you disagree with me. So I'm gonna include, after I include the meta, I'm gonna include the counters. So the counters I'm gonna copy again from NLP types. Actually, by this time I think I might do something. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do something similar with what I did for the... I don't have an abstract counters. Okay. I'm gonna have to study this very carefully for 1.0, whether I'm gonna create an abstract counters or not. So the good thing about looking into this is that I find these small details that need to be fixed for NLPModels.jl, or to be decided, actually, not fixed, because they are working. So I'm gonna follow the NLS meta strategy, which is to define, but not here, to define its own NLS counter and use a bunch of tricks. So it has counters inside. So NLS counters is gonna be a MultObj counters. It has counters. In addition, I'm gonna have the number of evaluations of obj_i, the ith objective function. And let me copy everything and select what matters. Grad I, the ith gradient. Don't need constraints. J grad. This is constraint. Jacobian J-plot has I, also known as Hesse. Not true. Do not call it Hesse. HI prod, and that's it. Number of, and by the way, I need the number. Do I want to have a counter for each individual value? Sure, why not? Sure. So number of individual objective evaluation, individual objective gradient evaluations. Hessian vector, okay. Yeah, that's good enough. MultObj counters. I should I'm gonna need the number of objectives to create these counters, and they should be zeros, int, and obj for each one of these. This may be too much, so maybe I'm gonna drop storing everything in the future. So base get property and set property of an NLS counter is gonna be of a MultObjective counters. So when I get the property c.eval_obj is gonna get me, is gonna be this. So it's gonna be c.counters.eval_obj. Otherwise it's gonna be c.eval_obj_i, for instance. And set property is gonna be the same thing. The thing is that I want to call a vector inside that. So for instance, if I have a mutable struct counters, and I have some vector here, counters 0, 3. So I need to do cv I equals 2. So what is called when I do CVI? Set index of an array. So c.v gets me the array. So when I do CV, it gets me the array. Oh, and since I'm getting the array, it's already a pointer, so I can already modify it. So it's actually using get property to get me the array, and then I modify it. So this is actually never going to be used, but never mind, let's leave it there. Sum of counters. I'm gonna sum every counter, and then I'm gonna sum. So here is not NLS counters anymore. Is multi-objective counters. Here as well. So when I get counters, I ignore because I'm summing them here. Otherwise, I need to get the field and I'm gonna sum. This is actually a terrible idea, but well. So actually I'm gonna cut this. Put it here. For counters in field. So get the number of stuff. Extract mult. So this is another one that needs to be what was this before? An NLS model. So all of these that have NLS model, they need to be actually in the API. Oh, this is wrong. This one. So when I reset the counters and then I come back here. When I reset MultObjective counters. So when I call NLS counters for my objective counters, for each of my objective counters, I have to refill these counters with 0. So I can't call set field exclamation mark. I have to call fill again. Get this field. Back to work. So get field exclamation doesn't make any sense. So it's fill the get field NLS counters F. So it's actually not NLS counters anymore. I actually don't need to call it NLS counters. I can call it C. So when I reset the multi-objective counters, I look into each of the objective counters, which are not counters, which are not called counters, and I refill them with zeros, and then I move on. I reset these original counters and move on. So this should be the basics of what I need. And the other not so basic things that I need are to define the functions that need to be created. So I have to create. So let's try to do it by memory first. So here in the API, otherwise I'm gonna open the guidelines Actually, I should open the guidelines because the guidelines are kind of cool in docs. A reminder that the guidelines are online in the docs, but I have them here, so instead of looking into the docs, I'm gonna look into the preview of the guidelines here. So it says that I need to implement these functions for I double clicked apparently, for unconstrained models. Objective gradient exclamation has a structure exclamation has chord exclamation and age broad exclamation. Copying. I'm also gonna need the has chord exclamation with a constraint and age broad exclamation with the constraint. So here in the API, I need to implement. So I have a new multiple objective functions. They're gonna be here. And I'm gonna have the NLP models functions, which are this one. So I need to implement obj grad has structure funcs and that other one, and and NLP is an abstract multi-objective model. Let me see, X is gonna be an abstract vector, which is also another common theme. Age and X and age vals, as well as X, V, and age V. And I also need as chord. I'm gonna use it right after this one. Y, which is also an abstract vector. Okay, there's an extra space here. And age rows are abstract vectors of the type subinteger. Objective weight is just a number, so real. And by the way, I'm gonna use 1t where t. And I'm gonna need t. I think I'm gonna need some t. Not that kind of t. So I'm not gonna implement everything here. And by the way, does this compile if I use revise? And I use MultObjNLP models. By the way, this is gonna use NLP models 0.13, which is a new version of NLP models, by the way. Range check's not defined. I haven't exported range check apparently. Let me check. NLP utils. here export lane checked, and I should export range check as well. Although this is not gonna be useful now. So it's not in the API, in the types, no, in meta, range check. I'm gonna import NLP models.range check. Work, please, now. Work. Import of NLPModels.reset into something conflicts. So I'm resetting into the counters. Not this reset. Could it be that I forgot to? No, this is an abstract. Oh, this is the syntax. Why? Ah, yeah, because I'm using reset. I'm using reset here first. Not gonna do anything now, I think, but anyway. I think that's it. Let's create a basic NLP, a basic multi-objective problem. So I'm gonna create this manually. Actually, I'm gonna create it as an example because then I can reuse it later as a file, I mean. Example.jl. So it's gonna be a mutable struct example MultObjNLP. Please reset, move out of the way. Let's use MultObjNLP models. It's gonna be an app. It doesn't find the so the current issue with VS Code is that it does not find the current package if it's not inside the source, but they are aware of it, so they are fixing it. A little annoying thing, especially in the tests. The tests look like garbage. So it's gonna be an abstract mood objective model. Is gonna have a meta thinking, which is this one. Is gonna have a counters, which is I also forgot this one. Is a multi-objective counters. Yeah. Okay. Function example MoNLP. When I create a MoNLP, is gonna create a meta, and the problem that I'm gonna create with this MoNLP is Rosenbrock. Again, Rosenbrock is everywhere. So Rosenbrock is x1 minus 1 squared. Oh. There you go. Plus 100 times x2 minus x1 squared squared. So I'm gonna define this as f1 being x1 minus 1 squared, and f2 being this other one. So maybe I should think about NL multi-objective as being an extension of NLS models, but I'm not gonna think about that now. So essentially what I don't want a multimedia, I want a multi-objective NLP meta, which has 2 variables and 2 functions. I don't care about anything else for now. The weights are gonna be 1, so I'm gonna define f2 as 100 times that other thing. And the counters are gonna be multi-objective counters, and I'm gonna return one of these things. So that's it. Include the example. Also, okay, abstract MultObj model not defined. Abstract MultObj model not defined. I'm using MultObj NLP models, right? Right. I'm inside MultObj NLP models. So I don't need to dev into this folder. I have to export things, so it's useful to export things that I use. So multi-objective, in the counters I'm gonna export MultObj counters. In meta I'm gonna export, I think I'm gonna export first MultObj meta. So include again. NLP is example MultNLP. Almost worked. So I cannot convert an object of type float64 to an object of type symbol. What? I cannot convert an object of type float64 to an object of type symbol. And the error is in this line. Oh no, the error is in the constructor probably, because I haven't set up this other, how many? 4 things. So I need to set the n objective, the weights, the objective types, and the other one. The other one being, I don't want to look, NNZHI. So no method matching, multi-objective meta, int64, int64, which is this one. So not sure. I've created 4 new values in this structure. Here, this error probably has some valid information. Or maybe not. So an issue using revise is that it does not work for structs. So since the struct has changed, I'm gonna start again using revise, using MultObjective NLP models. And then I'm not gonna use anything. I'm gonna include the example again. And I'm gonna create this NLP. And it's gonna error again. No method matching multi-objective counters. Oh, I need the number of objective functions, so that's fine. I'm gonna include again. IO not defined. IO. So I think in the print and here. So actually this creates some lines. So in the lines are gonna have only one to do, improve this. This is actually a bunch of lines, a vector of lines. So to do improve this, and then the other lines. Okay. Lines of hist not defined here. So the lines of hist are inside NLP models. Sparsity line also. Actually, I'm gonna import these functions. Import NLP models. Lines of hist. Sparsity line. And by the way, they are kind of yellow. So I'm not sure if this is working. Should I use dot? Is this any better? Not really. Lines of hist, sparse lines, and hist line. Let's try again. It is now working. It works as expected now. So it looks like my numerical calculus video has finished rendering. I had some mistakes this video and I had to render it again. But anyway, NLP is here. So the counters are not showing properly, but anyway, this is expected at some level. Problem name generic, number of objectives to do, improve this, and then the traditional printing in NLP models 013. So close this. What I want to do now is define a little bit what I expect from this API. So I expect another objective function. What I think I'm gonna do is the following. I think after each one of these functions, after each one of these NLP, I'm gonna include an I value, which is gonna be essentially an integer. So how do I write this again? But apparently I closed it and I'm looking at it as if it were there. So here I just say function, the objective and end, but this does not help me. Well, let's see what happens. I'm gonna say function, objective, and nothing, end, and I'm gonna say that the signature is this, and here almost the same thing. Evaluate fi of x, the ith objective function of NLP at x. How does this work? Let's just say NLP again, just see if something broke. No, let's ask for the help of obj. It finds nothing because that's the way it works. So okay, I'm gonna use this only to give a help then. This one. I need the grad exclamation has structure exclamation. Take your time here. Has chord exclamation. So wait, why is this called something? Oh, this is calling the constraint version, so that's fine. So I need another has chord as well. So the issue with having the same name is that it's gonna always give the documentation of the NLP models as well, the way it did here. Though I don't think that's an issue because Julia has a bunch of these situations. If you try to look for the documentation of something called join, for instance, you're gonna have a lot of things. But anyway. So has chord here, another has chord there, has chord everywhere. With a has chord here, with a has chord there. Hprod, and same thing for hplot. There is some hprod with rows, calls, and vals, which actually do not need any information about NLP except for the sizes. Although this could be, I don't think I need that one. No, this is not the one. This is the one. And that's it for now. Grad NLP I. The gradient of the ith objective function at x. So let me first add I to everything. Add I to every function signature. Then I'm gonna add lowercase I to every time f appears, such as this way. So there's some objective hashing here that I'm probably gonna have to change. Yep, and I'm gonna have to change it now. So here, const MultObjective is sigma I lowercase I I actually don't want to use a weight here. Yeah, I'm just gonna have this is actually too much. I'm just gonna copy this instead of having a whole function, i.e. this. Rewriting vowels. So let's copy this, i.e. blah, rewriting vowels, where the objective is blah. Lagrangian is blah. So actually I don't have the Lagrangian. Again, I don't have the constraints. I'm not gonna have the constraints. Doesn't make any sense to look at the constraints, but only at one objective function, I think. So I actually only care about the objective function in this model, which simplifies a lot. I actually don't want to use the types as well, the objective weights as well, so I don't need the types either. Oh no, sorry, these ones are the functions that I'm gonna call. These are the original functions. I don't need them here. So objective written has structure, yes. Has chord, it doesn't need the weights because I'm only looking at the if one. Evaluate the objective Hessian, the if objective Hessian at x in sparse coordinate format with objective function scale by, this is not true anymore. So i.e. this thing, rewriting vowels, only the lower triangle. So the this is not necessary anymore. I evaluate the Lagrangian. This doesn't make sense anymore. Hprod ix hv. Validate the product of the if. I forgot to copy again. Objective Hessian at x with vector v in place. No scaling. Objective is this. And since I don't have the other version. So that's it. I assume there are gonna be a bunch of these functions. I'm gonna import. I'm actually gonna copy this NLP dot, so I don't have to actually import. Yeah, right. I'm not importing. Yeps. Oh, let's see if I'm importing here. No, I'm just using, so that's fine. So I don't want to import. So I don't have to. For some reason, I don't like importing things. I'm not sure why. And then I can define these functions. So finally, I gonna test my idea here. So I have to implement a objective function, which is gonna receive a MultObjective, an example MultNLP actually, an index I, which is an integer, and a value x, which is an abstract vector. I can't write anymore. Abstract vector. So if I is 1, return x1 minus 1 squared. Else if I is 2, return 100 times x2 minus x1 squared squared. When I call this, I want you to check NLPModels.jl check that I have x of size 2 and check range check. How do I use range check again? Range check 1, 2, and con. So range first, then vector or something like that. Where is my example? So check that. So is this gonna work for I? Or does that only work for vectors? I don't know. Let's see. Maybe easy to just check that I is between 1 and 2, but I want to reuse functions. After the checks are made, I'm gonna compute the objective. So I want you to increment. So counters, is there an increment function here? No, there isn't. Why is there not an increment function? The increment function receives an abstract model and a symbol. It calls get property, which in my case gets the vector, and it says set property as. So now I'm gonna have to, I think I'm gonna have to where is it? Now I first get the value of that property. I add 1 and I set property using this. This is not gonna work, but let's see the failure, because it's getting hard to predict what's gonna happen. So I'm gonna try incrementing. So without having the index, this is not gonna work like at all. So I need to increment NLP and objective I. So the I of NLP. So instead of doing what I just did and waiting for it to happen, I'm gonna copy increment. I'm gonna go into the API and right here after these functions, increment counter SI of problem NLP. So this should be an abstract multi-objective model. So I'm gonna get that property. This is gonna be a vector. The ith element, and I'm gonna set that property. Where is it? Doesn't make any sense anymore. I can just get the property though and do this. I think, by the way, I can check. So CO or C was a counters. No, let's see. Big C is gonna be, or small c is gonna be multi-objective counters. So there's some error. When I say n.eval obj I, I can get field C n-eval obj I 1 plus equal 2, and it works. So why is it warning? I don't know. So revise errors. So I haven't finished, so that's why it's erroring. Or maybe not. This was implemented. Increment here. Increment with an I has been implemented. And no, that's it. Why is it failing? 71. Expected parenthesis. So maybe it doesn't accept. Yep, 78. So it doesn't accept that I was doing function obj. It's not erroring anymore, so I'm gonna test. So first, let me check if I have implemented obj. I have not, so I haven't called this yet. Let me comment. And let me say what I expect. When I call OBJNLP, I want to call OBJNLP IX times NLP meta weights I for I equals 1 to NLP meta and obj. So this is gonna be the sum of sigma I fi of x for each of the n objs. That's it. So that's it. So that's it. So obj is not defined because I haven't exported these functions. So if I call obj of NLP at minus 1.21, it's not gonna be defined. And since I can't do the way I was doing before, I'm gonna export. So we have obj grad exclamation. Let's see if this is gonna apparently works. Exclamation, grad exclamation. Where are my functions? Has structure, has chord, hprod. Has structure, has chord, hprod. So I called objective for this example thing, and it said I don't have that function. The closest candidate is this one with an X, and it tried to call it inside this function 107 here. So that's the bad part, because I'm not sure if this is sufficiently informative, but I'm following, I think it was Linda White's blog about removing the not implemented error, essentially. So essentially it's not implemented. It provides a method error. Yeah, I guess it's enough, at least for now. Because we are not implementing things correctly. So from the user side, this is fine. For the developer side, maybe not. Now I'm gonna include that example again. NLP models is not defined. Let's see. I don't know if I need NLP models or not. Increment exclamation, so I have to export increment. Actually, increment is an NLP models function. Although I have that, I have it inside this one as well. So considering this is the user. Oh no, this one is my function. So yeah, I prefer exporting it for now. It worked! Almost. So no, that's right. It's I and 1 and 2. So it works. That's the main idea behind this multi-objective function. So if you're gonna work on something like a truly multi-objective, you can define your you can define your functions and use them separately. Otherwise, you can use something like this. The objective is gonna be sum of objectives. The gradient is gonna be a sum of gradients. The has structure is gonna be a little bit inefficient, especially if you work with large models, because I'm gonna essentially just connect them all. The has chord, same thing. If each function is not efficient, they are all gonna be inefficient. You can simply repeat the indexes. And hprod is gonna be efficient. Gonna be efficient as hell. Cool. So a simple step here would be to implement grad exclamation and hprod, I think, and call trunk on this model to see if it works. And since it's simple enough, I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna return, so the gradient here is the sum of each gradient. So first I'm gonna fill G with zeros. So now I'm gonna use the type of X. Fill G with zeros, and for each objective, I want to call grad exclamation at a GI function. And add it here. So GI is gonna be a zeros T. Just something to store the memory momentarily. And I'm gonna add all these and return G. hprod is gonna be very similar. So I'm gonna fill hv. So this is essentially gonna be the sum of sigma I hi times v. So yeah, they're gonna be essentially the same thing. I'm gonna fill hv with 0. I'm gonna create a hvi, or actually hiv, for I in 1, 2, and objective. I'm gonna call hprod exclamation x. I'm thinking about this hprod here with the constraints. I have no idea what I should do with that. But anyway, ix v hiv, and I sum at hv NLP meta weights I times age IV and return age V. Let's implement grad exclamation for an example monopoly. That's gonna be the name, monopoly. So I have to check the length and the range and then increment. And then if there's that's exactly the same thing. X and G should be of the correct size. I'm gonna call grad I. If I have I equals, I'm gonna return G at the end. So G, it's 2 times, yeah, G1 is gonna be 2 times x1 minus 1, and G2 is gonna be 0. Yeah, this is gonna be converted. So G1 here is gonna be 200 minus 400 times x1 times x2 minus x1 squared. And G2 is gonna be 200 times x2 minus x1 squared. Not worried about efficiency. HProd is gonna have a V and an HV. I have V and HV of the correct sizes. I need HProd I. So when I compute another derivative here, I'm gonna have 2. So HV1 is gonna be 2 times V1, and HV2 is gonna be 0. HV1 here, when I compute another time, is gonna be this, and minus is gonna then be 800, right? Derivative of x1 is gonna be minus 400, this stuff. Derivative of x1 here is gonna be minus 2x1, which is gonna be plus 800 x1 squared. X1 squared. And this is gonna be times V1. And x2 is gonna be minus 400 x1. 8v2 is gonna be minus 400 x1 v1 plus 200 v2. So that's HV in this case, if I haven't made any mistakes, which there is no reason to assume that I haven't. When I call grad, it doesn't work. Why not? I have no method for when I call the grad exclamation with a vector and an empty vector. What? I'm calling grad exclamation, which should be calling grad. Well, let's see. I called grad, which was in NLP Models 136, called grad exclamation NLP XG, which is what I wanted. That called grad exclamation X, I forgot the I, GI, so that's it. I forgot the I here, no, but it's possible method call error because I haven't defined these functions, so that's one issue. This is still failed. Why still failed? It's failing the same place as before when I call grad exclamation NLP IXGI. Example I G has dimension 0. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make sense. GI, zeros T and a size. It helps to have a size. So I could say instead similar G0T. Is that not how you say it? Is few exclamation similar G0T. Not few, just few. Here I'm gonna have the same thing. Gonna be few exclamation similar HV with a 0T. Not enough. Not enough. So here again, IXGI. In the example, I have defined example monopoly. Here, grad exclamation example monopoly int array float 64.1 here and here. So it's not finding this one. I haven't included again the file. So the error is different. That means it's working. So increment again NLP and eval grad II. No method for this thing, but I have called it here. So what's the problem now? Again, it's not an NLP models function. There you go. The gradient of the first function is failing. Oh, the gradient. Yeah, I haven't defined the gradient yet. That's one of the things that my student is gonna have to work. The gradient is not defined, but it is gonna have a fallback to call the gradient by creating the memory for it. And for the second function is this one. So when I call the gradient like this, it works. And when I call hBroad like this with a vector, for instance, 1, 2, it failed for some other reason. There is no field hBroad I. So let's look into the counters. HIProd. Okay, that's my error. I've made a mistake. Include again. And now for the OG NLP, I'm gonna use a the NLP model. So the OG NLP is, if I don't use this function, is it the same if I use ADNLP? So grad OGNLP minus 1.2 1.0 and NLP almost the same. Okay, so there is some precision difference, but that's not relevant. And hBroad with 1's 2, and for the OG same thing. Okay, and for the really cool implementation here, there you go. I'm gonna call trunk, which is trunk is a truncated nonlinear. No, wait. It's a truncated Newton method with truss region. So it uses only grad, h prod, and the objective. I'm pretty sure. This is trunk called on the OGNLP, which is Rosenbrock defined by ADNLP. And this is trunk called on our NLP that we have just created. And it fails because in the end there's something related to some functions for the multi-objective meta that I haven't called for the default meta. That's my fault. That really is my fault. But anyway, the main things it has worked. It's interesting though that the iterations are not the same. Oh yeah, because the starting point is not the same. So I forgot to set a starting point in OGNLP. I'm sorry, in NLP. NLP made x0 is zeros. So OGNLP, if I start from zeros as well, it should take 15 iterations the same way as NLP. There you have it. Okay, so just the ending that I have to fix in order to work with the solver tools. But for the basic 2-hour implementation, I think it went pretty well. Okay, we have a multi-objective method, of course defined by the weights. So if I change the weights, everything changes. That's a cool thing to check in the near future. Well, let's just give an example. If I change the weights 1 to be 10 to the minus 4, for instance, and I call trunk again, it's gonna be very different because now it's very ill-conditioned, I believe, although the solution is the same. Yeah, the objective function is very different, but I can do stuff like that. I can change this to be 0, 0, 1, so this should be much better for the method. Yep, there you go. Is not so bad Rosenbrock anymore. I could even do things like saying this is 0, and it's gonna converge in 1 iteration because the problem only has the linear part now. But that's just for fun, okay? That's just like, let's do something fun a little bit. So it really works, and you can even work use the current objective functions. Okay. If you modify a little bit, I can for instance see you having a method that gives a step for each function by simply changing the weights and then calling a method for the NLP without knowing it's a multi-objective. The same way I called it here for trunk, although probably not going to be a very good idea. Okay, so that's it for now. I'm gonna add this model. For now, I'm not gonna add it to the JuliaSmoothOptimizers organization. I'm probably gonna leave it at my other organization, Sidamo, which is right above here. For now, because it's a Luno from Sidamo. But if all goes well, we should be moving it to JuliaSmoothOptimizers at some point in the future, hopefully the near future. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for watching. Please leave any doubts, any notes, any questions, anything in the comments below, and follow me on Twitch to see how we can improve this method, or for updates on what I did here, or if you have any doubts on how to do something similar for your method. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.